Let me
Recording
take
in
this
progress.
opportunity to declare this meeting officially open, which its purpose is to get briefing from various stakeholders on the issue of informal trading and cooperatives. So the meeting is officially open. Our guests are highly welcomed with open hands. We really appreciate their presence if they have really responded to our call. So I believe we will have a very a good discussion. I will now zoom to item 2, which is roll call. Can you be brief to who's in and who's not in? Braking.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, honorable members. Good morning, colleagues from various institutions that has been invited for the engagements on the matter at hand. And good morning, colleagues from the department and from Parliament. Chairperson, in the platform, members that I've admitted, yourself, it's Honorable Mieni, it's Honorable Inkosi Ultuli, it's Honorable Lubengo, it's Honorable Jacobs, it's Honorable April, it's Honorable de Villiers, it's Honorable Zumula. And then there are the invitees. I've seen Mr. Pali, who's from Sanapo. I've seen Mr. Moa. I've seen Mr. Musa from DGRV. I've seen Ms. Rosheda. I've seen Masa. So those are the people that I've seen, Chairperson. Also seen Mr. Bozo from NASA. So other members, I think I haven't received any apologies so far, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Braking. And thanks to the members, to our guests. I will request that we go to the next item, which is adoption of the agenda. Can I have any member who will move for adoption?
Madam Chair, before we adopt the agenda, I just want to make something 100% sure that the presenter of CITA, the second last item, who will that be?
Good morning, leadership. It's Michael Mokhoza, General Secretary of CITA. Thank you.
Say again? I don't hear that.
I've said it's Michael Mokhoza, the General Secretary of CITA.
Okay. Now I'm covered in, Madam Chair. No problem.
Now move for the adoption of the agenda.
I move that we adopt the agenda as in front of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Kruger. Any second, honorable members? Honorable members, any second for the adoption of the agenda?
Honorable Mieni, do so phone.
Thank you, Honorable Mieni. We'll now move to the next item. King, I can't see the
Madam Chair.
The agenda.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I'm sorry
yes,
to interrupt again.
Okay.
Madam Chair, we in a few reports in the past, we adopted a strategy that we will table the ombuds bill as a committee bill, and I think it's time that we start with the process, because it's a long process, and if we don't start with that process, the 7 Parliament members might feel otherwise, and then it's going to be not to the benefit of small businesses. So we all agreed that we're going to table the Ombuds bill. So the very first process is an email from you to the head of Parliament's private members bill department, Advocate van der Merwe. So maybe if we can just agree that you sent her the email today and stated that we are intending to table a bill like that as a committee bill. And then we can start. Then she can assign a staff member to us, and then we can carry on for the rest of the year with it, if it's possible.
Thanks, Honorable Kruger. Point taken. I believe our administrators were busy with that. We'll hear from Sbu. Can we have those presentations, and then when our guests are out, I will check with our administrators. Thank you for that input, Honorable Kruger.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We'll now move to the next item, which is stakeholder engagement. King, you mentioned many names. You will assist me on how to channel this presentation, but the first is South African National Apex Cooperative, which is SANECO. So I don't know whether they are the first one to speak.
Thank you, Chair. I think
that the
yes,
first
Chair.
one. Yes.
Yes, Chair. As let's use as according to the agenda, because the agenda has been adopted. I think it will be SANACO, then followed by NASA, then followed by CPI, that is Cooperative Banking Institutions, the working group, then followed by CITA, then will be followed by Informal Economy Development Forum, IETF. So each will be given about 15 minutes to make a presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. You have covered me. I wanted to come to that one of time frame allocation. I think 15 minutes is enough. They can evenly do better than that, because they need to just speak to their presentation. A rep from SANACO, you are welcome. The podium is yours. Can you take us through, please?
Thanks very much, Chairperson, and then of course members of Parliament, to the officials. Thanks very much. We are really excited to be part of the governing body in terms of allowing us to come and report on the work that we are doing on behalf of the country. Even thank you very much for that. Allow me to indicate first and foremost that indeed we will give the report at SANACO, but we want to announce to this Parliament today that we are excited and moved that we have managed to meet on our own as cooperatives, the ones that are playing the role of being in the apex, the umbrella body of representing cooperatives. We had a meeting in the department that other Wednesday. We have agreed that we're going to work together towards the registration of the apex body in the country. And then we want to send our thanks to the department, especially the Deputy Minister's office, and of course supported by the minister herself and the officials. That's in Jose and Tele in the office of the Deputy Minister, who facilitated this process and gave us the venue for us to meet. I'm just excited, members of parliament, by that we are working towards registration of one apex in the country, the body that will be recognized in terms of the act to represent the cooperatives in the country. But allow me just to give a report on the SANACO, that SANACO exists to advance and create a conducive environment for cooperative to exist. Our mandate and our duty is to make sure that we lobby and advocate on behalf of cooperatives. We are a union of cooperatives. We are SRCs. Advocate means we advocate and we are lawyers of cooperatives. That's our role. We see that in Exhibit Mitroya Bulabula, by representing cooperatives at a global level, at the ICA, International Cooperative Alliance, is the global body of cooperatives which was initiated in 1895. You would be aware that indeed, for the first time in Africa, in the African soil, the whole continent, SANACO hosted the globe, which was the first time on behalf of Southern in the continent soil. Allow me to come to what we've been doing since then. Of course, you have indicated that through to pandemic, we were unable to sit like yourselves, but after, when we go to the levels, we tried to be part of the economic recovery so that we have the opportunity to make sure that when there are small business are supported, cooperatives should not be spared. And indeed, we play that role. Small as we are, unsupported as we are, no support, no backup, but we did it. We want to report to Parliament that we still have got an office which has got more than 13 staff members. We are not funded. We want to put that. But we are making sure that the office should not be closed. And indeed, the colleagues, the workers also get something to eat to support their families. Of course, we've seen the eruption of the war between Russia and Ukraine disturbing the country, its economy, prices going high, especially the fish oil and others, which that gives an opportunity for cooperatives to grow more on the sunflower, so that we must not be dependent and be beggars and waiting to be fed or to be given. We are asking Parliament, you members of Parliament, especially this committee, to play a vital role in terms of being the voice to make sure that agricultural cooperatives are given an opportunity, and the Department of Agricultural Development and Small Business and Higher Education in terms of training, small business, because it's its mandate, agriculture for the land, and necessarily the growers. Because when this wars happened, it affects us because we're dependent on them. We might have seen as well in the issue of the chickens that our people, because they're waiting to be given, they eat chickens that spend more than 3 months on the boat. When you eat this meat, as soon as like it's rotten. So we are asking Parliament, please support your people through us. I will not, when I emphasize going forward, I will not emphasize the issue of SANACO, because we are unity now, we are united, and all of us will play the same role. And of course, I must also indicate that we had a meeting before the meeting of initiation of the Deputy Minister for us to meet together, that NACSA and SANACO met and forged unity co-op in the country. And indeed, we are working very well. When we met with INCASA, it then supported this role, and we're excited about that. And thanks very much for that, the colleagues from NACSA, that we are working together as unity co-op, and the committees there. We made an adjustment in terms of the Apex that we'll send you a copy of the Apex so that Parliament should be aware of what is happening on the ground. Because in terms of legislation, we have got a role to support or to report to you so that you are aware. Members of Parliament and Chairperson, we want to report especially on the role of the ICA. As I said, that this year we had a General Assembly in Spain this year, and the President of SANACO attended that. And like I say, where there was no support, we tried on our own to get a few cents there and there. And then for that, we're saying SANACO, thanks very much for the members of SANACO, and we're lobbying government, we are lobbying members of Parliament. In the some years to come, when we attend this General Assembly of the Globe, interministerial of the Africa, members of Parliament, we request that we go with you and go and see, and also to increase your capacity in terms of learning, or just to see what other people are doing, so that if the improvement, we learn something which is making value and impact. So we come back and do that together, so that we must not be in silos, someone then said. So when you get information together, and that's how we move. The same in the international, we have got the subcommittee in the ICA of the B20, which is the business 20 that cooperatives is participating that. And then we must indicate that will be expected sometimes to come to host the B20, which we're engaging on a serious note, and we're part of that. And we're representing the country. So Parliament should know about this. And I also want to further speak about the international on the ICAO. ICAO is the body of the corporate agricultural cooperatives, wherein President Lawrence Barre from South Africa is the deputy president in the ICAO, in the globe. We missed the meeting now in Korea because of we didn't raise enough funds for us to attend. And the next time we'll tell the Parliament on time, so to get support, and we go with a selected few to move around. I hope and believe that members of Parliament will all of you visit the globe, because there are a number of international that are happening. Allow me to go further to the BRICS cooperative leaders. Parliament, we hosted the BRICS cooperative leaders sometimes back, but next year it's our time that will be hosting the BRICS cooperative leaders. These are the leaders of cooperatives that exchange in terms of the trade and training and information. So that amongst ourselves, we should trade to one another. And then you will find that when you go to China, there's the issue of we supply them with the maize. There is as well as the issue of us learning in terms of the IT. They also at one stage supported us in terms of the phones that are done by the children, the laptops that are done by the children, as an education for them to say, our children, they don't go to school to learn about the frog, locust, and then tree, the stem, and so on. They learn about what they're doing, and we're lobbying you, Parliament, to be vocal and be the voice of South African in terms of training and education, that the children should be taught what they are going to be beneficiary of it, not the issue that will not be adding value to their life and going forward. That was the BRICS. and then I'll go to the South African, the sub-region of the continent. Allow me to first talk about the continent, International Cooperative Alliance Africa. We had the meeting this year in Egypt. Of course, the president attended, President Bale of Cooperatives attended, representing South Africa. It was so ashamed when you find other countries, they had their ministers, deputy ministers, DGs, members of parliament from other countries. We were ashamed. It was so embarrassing. I was the only person from South Africa to say we represent cooperatives. But why do you come alone? Why there's no one either from government or other? But we said, no, we lobby. And indeed, I'm raising this point, Chaplain. I'm lobbying you to be vocal, to say we should share information with yourselves so you are able to attend or delegate so that people are able to attend these meetings. And indeed, these meetings are annually. Therefore, even next year. And then we are being requested if we could host the interministerial meeting in South Africa. I'm lobbying you, Parliament, to talk to your department as the custodian and the Holds Act to make sure that we host the interministerial meeting. And then, of course, I'll go back. I've already indicated about, let me finish about the Southern Africa, the sub-region of the ICA, that Botswana volunteered to host the office in Botswana. So our office are in Botswana of the sub-region. And then members of parliament, your child from South Africa, Mr. Bale, is the leader of this southern sub-region. Our office in Botswana. The Botswana is supporting us by 5 staff members, and then giving us an office and giving us staff to operate. Therefore, they are also lobbying countries to put in something. So we'll be finalizing the meeting in Lesotho on the 14th. We'll be in 14 and 15. We'll be in Lesotho to finalize the issue of the setup of the office in Botswana. So as we are in the sub-region, we visit all countries. We have been in Botswana. We have been in Mozambique. Now we're going to Lesotho. Other countries will go. Please support us. Support your child, so that when we are there, we are able to be next to the proximity to pull them here in South Africa, so that your people are able to have these things. We are requesting that, I'm looking at the 5 minutes left. We are requesting, please, Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, I'm begging you, go and sit down with your department to implement the Act. The Act is there. They are not implementing, they are not talking about it at all. We wonder what kind of department is that in terms of the head of the department. Please, we're pleading with you. The Act is in their hands. They only focus on the SMME sometimes, but cooperatives is none. When they have this event, they will say SMME and cooperatives, like what happened some 3 weeks back, but was nothing about cooperatives. They make awards, nothing about cooperatives. And they even give cooperatives just for 30 minutes an hour. So it's just by the way. We're lobbying you to say this should stop now. And they must implement their own act. It's not our act. It's their own. If they don't have capacity, there must be same consequences for people who are not doing their work. We can't just work without people not doing their work. The Act, you know, that it has got pyramid that needs support, the issue of the advisory council, the issue of the apex, the issue of the tribunal, the issue of the academy and the agency, which are the pillar stone to support cooperatives. They're in the Act. They're having the Act. They're not doing anything about it. Let's see what's happening. And we need these things to happen as a matter of urgency. And then, of course, I must not leave the issue of Sanaco playing the role at NEDLEC, wherein they are there on the policy development of cooperatives to make sure that they are supported and we are participating effectively. And then we are believing that after this meeting of today with the Parliament, there will be change. We are also requesting not to meet once in a year. For us, Chairperson of Parliament, if we can work together, and then maybe next year we meet bi-monthly so that we are able to assist, not only to monitor, to intervene and support where necessary. I want to conclude by saying, Portfolio Committee of Parliament, we have been hit hard by COVID, but it's for us together to come together on the economic recovery plan and then expose some of the issues that we need to work. And indeed, we want to thank the Portfolio Committee on the work that you are doing, speaks on behalf of your people. And we say thanks very much, as we'll be meeting and then coming to report to you that we are united, all cooperatives in the country, under one banner of the Apex, wherein we'll be speaking in one voice, and we're getting along. We are excited. Thanks very much, Chairperson. Send our thanks to the Minister and the Deputy Minister to say we really thanks for them to create a conducive environment for us to meet, but please support us. But to the department, you must please call the department on relaxation and not doing things about the act that they're holding. What do they need? Do they have problems? They need you to do something. I think I must not pass the minutes that has been allocated. I should be disciplined and arrive there. There is our email. There is our contact. We should also meet and interact amongst ourselves. And then you know that Comrade Bob Mabaso was part of that. He's still continuing to support and advise us on a number of other issues. Thank you very much, Chair and King. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are what we must know, we did this to can meet with you. I think you said a mouthful, but let me guarantee you that this committee is behind you on the issues of cooperatives. Want to see you alive, want to see you growing, want to see you creating many, many jobs. So rest assured, we are yours. But thank you so much for your presentation. We are learning as members of Parliament, and we're going to commit ourselves to make sure that we support you 200%. I would like now to invite
Chairperson, can I?
Yeah, can you assist me to invite them, because I have lost my agenda here. I'm struggling.
I think it's NASA. Is it Mr. Mpondo? Is it you who's going to do the presentation?
Yes, sir.
Can I give you the host rights so that you can control your presentation?
Can you flight the presentation?
You flight it yourself. Do you have it?
No, I don't have it with me. Can you do it from your side?
Okay.
Okay. Let me first thank you, the Honorable Chairperson and her committee, for giving us
Mr. Mpondo. Mr. Mpondo, we're losing you.
Mr. King, can I assist in terms of taking the presentation through? It seems like our General Secretary is struggling. If the chair may allow.
Okay.
I don't have any problem. He may proceed. After all, he is asking us.
Thank you, Chairperson. And as the General Secretary, unfortunately, the challenges of network, but he has already accepted the invitation to come and present and also register their gratitude of Nkasa to get this particular opportunity to make presentation to the Honorable Committee. Let me start by saying that the biggest challenge that we have observed as the cooperative movement is that there's a general lack of understanding of the nature, the character, and the purpose of cooperation or cooperatives in this case. And over a period of time, the dominance that the thinking about a business enterprise, it has been revolving around what we used to call the close corporations or the PTY LTDs. And in most cases, up until today, there is still that lacking in understanding by the general public, government officials to a certain extent, and in terms of understanding what cooperatives are. And that lack of understanding then contributes further to the failure of the adequate support for cooperatives, as we were thought probably as cooperatives will be able in this case to follow. Specifically looking at the previous presentation from the president of SANACO, who indicated that there is the legislation on cooperatives, but this lack of understanding, we are sitting with 10 years of a proclamation or a proclaimed legislation that's still not yet to be implemented. Even the national cooperative strategy that was developed then, 10 years down the line, nothing, no implementation has taken effect so far. The second biggest challenge that we observed is that whilst cooperatives have values in terms of self-help, self-responsibility, solidarity, and mutual help, and also the principles that govern cooperatives, that also it's also a challenge, because that particular cooperative identity, if it's not observed in this case, then there's going to be problems in terms of operationalizing the two things that were mentioned, which is the strategy and the act. The third biggest challenge that we observed is that the perpetual using of private service providers in supporting an establishment of cooperatives, training, imparting legislations, developing of policies, that on its own, it becomes a problem. I'll give you an example. Right now, we are here making presentation to the Honorable Committee, but in most cases, when you think and you listen, the thinking is still is around what you normally call the worker cooperative, which is here in this instance, the creation of employment. I mean, if you're looking at the statistics this morning of only 1% reduction on unemployment over and above the huge unemployment rate that we're facing with. Yes, there's a push for unemployment, but in this case, the utilization of service providers who do not have understanding of cooperatives, that on its own, it harms the interest and the progress cooperatives in the country. So what is very important is that then this leads to the promotion of cooperative being a panacea in solving all the business problems. There are instances whereby municipalities, even metros, they always give an instruction to LED officers to say, go and organize 200 cooperatives. That lack of understanding to say cooperatives just go out and register them as SCCs. And in terms of organization, the process is still the same. It also creates its own challenges in terms of understanding the nature of cooperatives and the character. Most importantly, the purpose and the culture of how cooperatives are organized in this case. Very importantly, as I mentioned, that cooperatives in the main are in four main sectors, which is the worker sector, the finance sector, the service sector, and insurance sector. So in most cases, if we can understand that particular part, we'll have covered a lot of ground in this case. I'll give you an example. Right now in the country, the Department of Social Development is the biggest promoter of cooperatives, but they promote worker cooperatives and little about the cooperative in their sector in terms of a social cooperative that provide the daycare center, daycare and ECDs and stuff like that. So that on its own, it means the responsibility and the role that was supposed to have been carried by the Department of Labor in this case, it is actually in the shoulder of social development. So the issue of lack of sectoral support and understand the nature of cooperatives actually dealt in this particular instance. So the sector strategies, the implementation thereof, and the sector ecosystems is establishment development, and most importantly, the funding models also becomes a problem in terms of support for cooperatives. I'll give you another example in terms of the human settlement right now. It's not clear in terms of the policy that the human settlement do give with assistance from the Department of Small Business to say that a housing cooperative, when they have acquired land, what type of funding models we can make to ensure that those that want to build their own houses, organize as cooperatives, this could be the strategy. And very importantly, because the Department of Small Business at the current situations are seen to be the leader of the cooperative sector. As a result, to a certain extent, other department then becomes laxing, thinking that the Department of Small Business will be the one that solves all the problems. But when it gets to the banking sector and said that these are the requirements for a banking cooperative that needs to follow it, then becomes a challenge in its own. So the issue again, if we were to add the lack of cooperative and operational skills, financial inclusion and establishment of reliable cooperative capital, lack of economic inclusion and establishment of reliable cooperative markets. Those are the biggest challenges in this case because cooperatives find themselves competing with the big roles, competing with the captains of industry who are already organized. And that lack of support, that on its own becomes a challenge. There was an issue of a set aside for presidential procurement opportunities for cooperative, which is still a challenge in the moment. And in some of the instances, when we conduct workshops, we always encourage cooperatives to cooperate as per principle number 6 of cooperative. We do not compete with one another. We'll be very happy if things will be done whereby, for an example, if the municipality said we want a cleaning cooperative, we'll rather go out there with a one single cooperative for 500 employees, 500 members, rather than to have 50 cleaning cooperatives competing among against each other. So that element of lack of understanding, in this case, they'll tell you that no, but you have to be competing. But in cooperatives, that is in conjunction or in collision with our principles in terms of cooperation with one another. And that then creates a huge overdependence of government in terms of how they do their work. Lastly, there's also the issue of envisaged turnaround time that I already mentioned. The issue of bring cooperation workshops, the nature, the character, and purpose of how you organize cooperative is not embedded when you organize cooperatives. The training is not sector-specific, and the funding models are not sector-specific. Everything what CEDA, IMPAS, or any other funding organizations, when it deals with cooperatives, it becomes a one-size-fits-all. And in most cases, it has been proven over and over again that that does not work when it comes to cooperative, because like any other organization or any other departments, each and every cooperative belongs to a particular sector. As a result, the funding models and the policies should be sector-specific. And most importantly, there's also the element that we are going to envisage and really hit on very hard, is that there must be some sort of a cooperative support ecosystem in the architecture in this case. The Act makes it very clear that this ecosystem revolves around the cooperative college, the tribunal, the agency, the CDCs or the cooperative development centers, and cooperative development funds, where we talk about the centralized cooperative type of a funding model. In this case, we normally call the cooperative fund. These are all in the Act, but at the moment they are not being implemented. And that on its own, it creates a huge problem for cooperative development. Excuse me, also for the cooperative to get massive support in the country at the moment. I'll give you an example. For an example is that the report of CEDA for CIFA, Small Enterprise Finance Agency, for this current year indicated a 0% of any cooperative that has been funded. They're sitting with a budget, but they couldn't fund even a single cooperative. So the question is that what could be the reason behind that? So those are things that we look into. And then as we finalize, Chairperson, is that there's a particular document that NCASA developed, and it talks about the informal sector and how cooperatives can be utilized as a vehicle of formalizing the informal sector, so that the issue of generation of employment, enterprise development, and creation of more and more people into the mainstream economy in that particular sector can be attempted. So we hope that one day we'll get an opportunity to come and present that particular document. But yes, it has already been given to the administration of the portfolio committee to have a look at it. And then probably then, as I said, we'll have an opportunity to come and present it, to share the ideas, because at the moment, these are some of the things that when we engage with a program of decent countries, specifically at the ILO level, we're looking at the formalization of the informal sector so that the cooperatives can assist that in an issue of bulk buying as cooperatives, as consumer cooperatives, and then with the amount of money that is being amassed there, they can set up their own cooperative banks. So that is a long and short of it, Chairperson. And lastly, I'm not sure if the invite you have received it, that tomorrow NCASA will be hosting the International Cooperative Day celebration, which is the celebration of 100 years of existence of cooperatives in the country. And we have sent an invite to the Honorable Chair and the Honorable Committee. It will be here in Cape Town, just behind the door. So we'll really be honored by the presence of the Portfolio Committee to be there. And I also have to stress that it has been very, very difficult, because this is one event that cooperative organized themselves without not even half a cent from the department, even though there was an agreement in all other ICTs that the department will be able to put a little bit of money aside in terms of budget to assist. We've been doing this together with the department, but unfortunately this year it hasn't been the case. And we find ourselves that we have to take this and that to try and make it work. It will still be a challenge, but cooperators are very ready to go and celebrate that day. And they will be honored by the presence of the Honorable Committee and the Chair. Please allow me to pause right there, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for the presentation. We're really learning, but what is important as an organ or a vehicle which is doing oversight, we're highly interested. But what is painful is the issue of zero spending, which the cooperatives could not receive anything. We are highly touched, but believe me, this is a start. We'll move this journey together. Can I have the next presenter?
SBI working group. I don't know who can I
Hello.
give.
Yes, hello. It's Debo for here. I will put my hello, it's Debo for here. I'll put my presentation on the screen.
Okay, just wait, Debo.
Okay.
Yes, we can proceed then. Flighting a presentation.
Yes, can I ask that I share, that the host share with me the screen, please?
Yes, I've made you a co-host. You can proceed.
Oh, okay. Let me see. Okay, it says only the host can share this meeting. So I don't know what's happening.
Wait. Yes. Yes, you can.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I've clicked it the wrong person. That's why. Okay. You may proceed. We'll request that maybe if you're opening, you can show your face so that members can see
who yes.
is talking to them. And then thereafter, you can switch your camera off for your bandwidth.
Okay. Yes. Hi, everyone. This is Tebogo Padu. I'm here on behalf of the Steering Committee on Cooperative Banking Sector Strategy, of which I'm a member and part of the entire group. And without much ado, because I don't have much time to get in, but it looks like I've got a difficulty, Chair. Maybe like the last speaker, I may request that the slides be presented there, even though I would have preferred myself doing that. Yes, Chair, thanks for that. Let me just first start to say, second slide. Next slide, please. Yes, just to say that this is the context of which our presentation is structured. Without going through it, let me just introduce who we are in the next slide. Thanks. Yeah. Okay. I mean, this is a steering committee made up of volunteers from representatives of at least 13 registered cooperative banking institutions. And we've got a task to ensure the implementation of cooperative banking sector development strategy for South Africa. So we in the team, we are classified as a sector strategy steering committee. And our work is technically supported by experts. Myself is part of that technical support, which include CBDA, the World Bank, and a Dora Tamana Cooperative Development Agency. The committee is chaired by Mr. Lucky, and I think he's here from Lekranche CFI, which is a cooperative bank or made up of taxi associations in KZN. And we also have Poifo Mofokeng Ditsobotla of the Cooperative Bank. I'm not sure he has managed to join in. Ditsobotla Cooperative Bank is the first cooperative bank to be registered under the current Cooperatives Banks Act. Next slide. Yes, and as a steering committee, before I start to look at our own, because here our purpose is just to share with you, the sector, the challenges, as well as specific proposal we want to make to the committee for considerations. These are matters of policy. These are matters of regulation, and support. And this slide is just to give a sense, Chair, about what are cooperative banks. Sometimes they are referred as CFI, CBI, SANCOs, part of the confusion now. But legally, we are talking about financial cooperatives that are collectively owned and democratically controlled by their members. I should say members, not mem. And members save together and they lend to each other. So cooperatives exist only to serve their members, not to profit from their needs, whether those financial, economic needs they may need. So as such, they are not, unlike private banks, profit making is not their main preoccupation, but how we better improve the needs of their members, whether that need is about housing, is about an enterprise, to grow your enterprise, or even social needs that you may need. A bank is there to address those needs of the members. We are regulated and highly, highly regulated by Cooperatives Banks Act, Cooperatives Act, National Credit Act, NCR, and others. And legally, if people want to form a bank, you need a minimum of 200 people and a minimum of 1 million deposits. And you must have this thing called common bond of membership, which basically says your members must be clearly defined, whether they are a community, whether they are an association, whether they are some. So that's what common bond means. And it's a legal requirement. And if you have not reached 1 million of deposits, the law says you can register as a cooperative financial institution, this thing called CFI, which only requires 100,000 rand. Okay, I'll talk more about these definitions of CFIs and so on later as part of our proposals. Next slide. Yes, I think, Chair, just to give a background to this strategy, it started in 2021, actually, during the National Indaba in the COVID period, and visually a multi-day, and participants from cooperative banking sector attended. We reviewed, we discussed, and we chose a development growth path forward for the movement. This event was a culmination, actually, of a process that started earlier, but Indaba was actually where we finally decided on what development growth path we need as a sector. I must say that we are the only sector so far in the cooperative sector that have managed to have a joint strategy with government. You know, people these days are talking about social compacts, master plans, and so here you go. This is a sector that has that. And there is a unanimous support at the Indaba for the vision that we have adopted there. That is that of a cooperative banking sector serving the workers and communities. And following Indaba, the steering committee of which I've talked about was formed. And the components there of how to implement, how to organize the strategy, how to promote cooperative banking is part of its mandate. So the strategy for growing cooperative sector also have taken into account the recent developments. You know, the COVID issue had a serious impact to every business in general, including even the financial sector. And in our case, it was even much more severe, you know, because it affected the ability of our members to repay loans. And also it has also affected our capacity financially and operationally. The strategy was also benefited from a very, very intensive and comprehensive survey conducted by CBDA of National Treasury and the World Bank in terms of what members and potential members are looking for in their cooperative banks. And we've used this survey in the process of developing the strategy. So for the first time, Chair, I need to emphasize that since 2007, when the cooperatives legislation was passed, we now have a cooperative banking strategy, a strategy that will be largely driven by the sector itself with active support of national government, particularly the CBDA. And Chair, maybe if I'm here on the CBDA matter before I go forward, I just wanted to emphasize one particular point in the next slide. Okay, maybe let me just go to the next slide. I think it will come back again in our proposals. But here, Chair, in this slide, we want to start to say, before we think about anything about the sector, and probably even other sectors in the cooperatives, we need to understand what is the state of the sector, what is their level of development. And we adopted this international approach where it shows that you can classify development of cooperatives in three ways. The first is what we call a nascent development stage. And this is a stage in the cooperative banking where it's characterized by small asset size. I mean, very, very, very small, relative to the small banks, to the big banks, and so on. And it's got a tight common bond of membership. And there's a lot of voluntarism rather than having, paid staff in many of these cooperatives. If there is a paid staff, is one or two, but a lot of work is done by volunteers who are members themselves, whether it's on governance and whether it's on issues related to management of the co-op. And they provide basic services, and loans, products, and the regulation may be even tight, but it may be even light, depending on the countries we have studied here. And government support is critical in these stages, as well as the support of the cooperative movement in general. Then you will have also a transition development stage. This is where the asset size grow a little bit, and no, not a little bit, but I think more significantly. And there are shifts in the approach of support. Common bond becomes more flexible, and so on. And product development tax, there's a professionalism coming in, and also there is a representative and support bodies of the sector in place. And the most ultimate is the mature stage, Chair, where you've got a very large asset size of the sector, very restrictive, less restrictive common bond, digital technology, the world of digitalization, access to payment systems, well-organized, progressive, support-led, and representative. So you'll ask, where are we as a sector? We're saying that nearly 14 years since the Cooperative Banks Act, the sector is still in the nascent stage of development. Although there are green fields, elements of a transition embodied in where we are. And here are the facts about the state of our sector, Chair. Just mentioned 4 points there, or 5, that there are already 29 registered CBIs, largely cooperative banks and CFIA, and they represent or serve 30,000 members. An average membership in a co-op, individual co-op, is 1,000. So together, they have mobilized 400 million in savings, and they offer basic products in loans and savings. Their asset size is 500 million. And 350 million is already out to members in a form of loans. Majority of these loans are personal, but there is also an encouraging signs of moving towards productive loans, meaning loans that support businesses, cooperatives, other types of cooperatives, housing loan. And relative to the size of the sector, lending is still very, very, very low. And most registered CBIs are either organized as community-based banks or as association-based banks, such as trade unions, based cooperative banks. But cooperative banks can also be established by employer groups. ESCOM can have its own bank for its own 40,000 members or so, workers or so. And by concentration, we found these co-ops, even though they are found in most provinces, KZN and that is where they are largely found. Next slide. Okay. Chair, I think I don't want to raise important, to labor much on this, but just to say that the point raised earlier, I got some noise at the back. I'm not sure where is that. Yeah. Chair, I'm getting distracted a little bit. I'm sure someone has opened his mic.
Can you assist us? Somebody was.
Yeah, because I'm deeply distracted. I'm sorry, I have to wait. Yeah, okay.
That's the chairperson.
Cynthia.
Ask the honorable member to mute himself or herself, please.
Okay, Chair, I just said I don't want to labor much here, but the point I wanted to raise is that cooperative banking identity is a problem itself. It's a factor that we look at it. I mean, the term cooperative bank is in the law, original law as well. When we started this almost more than 10, 14 years ago, as I've said. But now it's been confused in variety of ways. Various names have been legally used to refer to the same thing. Same thing in terms of content of what a cooperative bank is all about and so on. So we get to accustomed, the government has even amended the legislation that talks about CFIs, a term that has no legal precedence even internationally. And the use of such names undermine the intent of the Cooperatives Banks Act and as well as cooperative identity, especially when you want to start and you start to tell people that you are a CFI, not a cooperative bank, and things like that. They just confuse and potential members tend to stake back because they think these things are just scams or tatama chants. So we really want to raise public awareness about cooperative banking. We need to make sure that they are called for what they are. They are cooperative banks and nothing more. And we have called for this as part of protection of our identity, as well as to strengthen efforts of government in promoting cooperatives. Chair, the other important point we want to raise is the legal and regulatory environment. I'll go into detail a little bit, but here, the recent cabinet decision, and I'm aware that your committee has deliberated on these things before, where there is a cabinet decision to merge cooperatives, CBDA, Cooperative Development Banks Agency, with other entities in the Ministry of Small Business. It is well recorded that this was done without any consultation or engagement with the sector. But nevertheless, the sector has been invited to engage with the Ministry of Small Business to ensure at least that we secure the main functions of CBDA when CBDA is carried into this measure. And these functions should be adequately resourced, and strengthened. And they will include promotion, registration, and regulation of representative bodies, meaning a secondary cooperative bank support a national association that represent the sector. They should facilitate funding and fund education and training, and also accredit and regulate support organizations. You have heard from the first presentation concern about the quality of providers for the cooperative sector. Now, this, in the current law and so on, no one can just support without some form of accreditation in the sector. So we think this is very, very good because it improves the quality of support in the sector. And also one of the functions of the CBDA was to provide liquidity support to registered cooperatives through loans or grants. And we think this should continue in the new measure. But Chair, this is not just referring to this, because the new measure, this measure is likely not just to support cooperative banks, but all other types of cooperatives. So we really say that we cannot look at the CBDA without also looking at amendments, that the amendments that are going to be made in the Cooperatives Banks Act, where CBDA is, must also be aligned with the amendment of the Cooperatives Banks Act. previous speakers have talked about the agency and support institutions in the Act. Now, how is this process being aligned with that? It means we must also pay attention to the Act, which largely its provisions have not been implemented as pointed out. So next slide. Next slide. I don't see next slide. Next slide. Next slide, please. Yeah, okay. I think this is just, okay. Before I go, maybe let me go to the detail of it. I'll pass this slide because it's connected with other next slides. Next slide. Yeah, this is the chair to show what we identified as a challenge in our strategy. And what is important, we are not just complaining of the we are offering a solution, the strategy solution, and we are going to provide also proposals. The issue of growth, of membership growth. The sector is not growing when it comes to membership, but there is a commendable growth when you refer to assets, to people depositing their money and saving with the cooperatives, banking sector. But membership has been growing at almost flat, 0.7 annually in the last 10 years. So, just consider that there are 11 people out there who are working age and are unbanked. This is a significant opportunity for the sector. And then the second challenge is lack of public awareness. It has been raised earlier, even by the sector. But in our context, we are referring to, for instance, that just take into account that if people are not aware about cooperative banking, because it's a new phenomenon, it's a radically different concept from what you understand about banking. But there's no one raising public awareness. There's no one promoting that. That is a problem. It hinders the ability of the sector to grow its deposit, to grow loans, to generate resources for loans. There are 10 million people now in savings groups like barrier society, stokvels, and so on, in the townships, in the villages. And the millions of workers who belong to trade union movement who are unaware about what cooperative banking can offer to their members. So we're saying, Chair, as a proposal, that we need champions in government, and in particular small business, to work with the sector to promote cooperative banking identity, especially with regard to ownership and control of these banks by communities and workers who are its members. Next slide. Yeah, the other issue, Chair, is that given the small size of the sector, workers and the communities they serve, served by this, we have found that, the small size also affect the kind of quality these co-ops can retain in terms of staff, in terms of board leadership, especially those co-ops that are in the rural areas, like the famous Motswedi Cooperative Bank, which also provides social grants, distributes social grants through the banks. So we're saying that while external support remains a necessity, for growth in the foreseeable future, the sector needs to begin to build its internal capacity, meaning we need to build our own ecosystems in training and education. And that is something that we have highlighted. But also we think that, loans are an issue, Chair. Sometimes this is not the result of our own making, but because of the current regulations. There is this regulation on the National Credit Regulator. Before you become a bank, even if you got a banking license from the PA, you still have to apply to a National Credit Regulator, who may take 6 months, sometimes even over that, to give you a loan. Yet a loan is the primary source of our financial assets, is a primary source for us to grow the cooperatives. So members believe in the sector that CBI's applications for loan license are too time consuming they create an impression that the cooperatives cannot deliver requested products for their members. And sometimes it drives people not to use the banks, but to use mashonisas and corporate and commercial banks to access loans. Next slide. Yes, Chair, one of the things we are saying here is about deposit insurance. This was in the original act, is now being removed. And we are the only country, even in the G8 countries, where 88% of G8 have got deposit insurance guaranteed by a government. That should something happen to your institution, member savings are guaranteed. Okay, South Africa is now beginning, Treasury has proposed a deposit insurance over the last 4 years, and we hope it is coming. We've got specific proposals to make in this proposal. For instance, that cooperative banks who originally promoted deposit insurance in the Act should be included in this. But not just only that, but they should be given a premium holiday, given their small size. For at least 10 years, there's a specific recommendation in that regard in these slides that we're presenting. Unlike other countries, Comrade Chair, during the startup phase, because we're talking about growth here, we must grow cooperatives big time. But unlike other countries, there is too much restrictions here in our country. Reserve Bank has imposed very restrictive prudential and operational norms, big red tape that can hinder the growth of the sector. Countries like Poland, England, including even the United States and Brazil and Uganda, when they started in the early years, they had a limited prudential requirements and regulations. So we are not saying remove all regulations. No, we are not anarchists like that. But we're saying you have learned from those countries, put limited regulation for the growth of the sector and so on, especially on areas like fixed assets. A cooperative is limited on whether it should buy a building, which it can use as an asset to leverage for growth. External borrowing. For instance, we are not allowed to borrow outside more than 15% of our total assets. So we're saying those restrictions are unnecessary. You can even go to up to 40%, even 50% of external borrowing, and so on. So it takes too long. In short, these regulations are too much for a small sector like us. We are even smaller than the entire burial society and stokvels combined, which are unregulated. So it takes too long to register, and also registration again. After registration as a co-op bank, you must also register again for a loan license. So that's too much for the sector, giving compliance that we have to go through. Chair, this is a summary of our strategy. I won't go through it, but just to highlight important features of the strategy. Our vision, I've already talked about that, of financial and economic inclusion. We are targeting 400,000 at least, by 2030, 400,000 members, from the current membership base of nearly 30,000 members. So it's quite ambitious. And we are also looking at the pillars, improving our products, the IT systems, going digital, our robust source of funds. I've alluded to that, like external funding, mobilizing resources from our members, digital delivery channels, make delivery of our products much more easier, accessible, especially to the young generation. And what we have said was that to implement those pillars, we have to create an enabling environment at the same time, like establishing a secondary bank, improving access to national infrastructure. Someone in the one presentation I've seen earlier, I think it was in NASA, it was saying that cooperative banks are dependent on private banks. The reason why is because we don't have a secondary cooperative bank as required by law, which will make cooperative bank relatively independent from commercial banks. You don't have to open an account with a cooperative bank in order to operate. You don't have to use their services with a competitor in order for you to access debit cards, credit cards, internet banking for your members. You can do that through your secondary cooperative bank. Also, we talked about support organization for advocacy and training, where there is, okay, on secondary bank, let me just put it clear, Chair, the plan is to submit that registration of a secondary bank next year. And for the access to infrastructure, which is deposit insurance, I've talked about it, that we need a holiday for that. And for support and representatives, we just held a recent Indaba this year, just a week ago, and the sector has agreed that 2023 must be a year in which they will launch their sector. We are very, very much united in everything we do in this sector. And a tired licensing is only part of that approach. Tired licensing means, Chair, that you are supervised and you are regulated in proportion to your size. I've already said we are too small. We even make a less of a fraction of the entire assets of the sector, yet we are regulated like we are Nedbank, we are ABSA, and so on. No. The sector has agreed, government, because it's part of this strategy, also agreed. It means we now have to work towards these proposals that we are making. So the rest of the slides are basically about those proposals I've mentioned. And let me end there, Chair. Thanks so much. So as I said, the rest is making the detail of those proposals. There are about 7 of them, Chair, and you can look at it as such. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Oh, that was powerful. And we really appreciate, as I've indicated, that as the portfolio committee, we are also excited because we are learning. So we'll look at all those 7 recommendations as outlined by ourselves. I will now zoom to the next presenter.
Thank you, Chair, and the committee as a whole. Thank you for accommodating us today to come and make a very short presentation regarding the sector. My name is Michael Mokoja. I'm the General Secretary of South African Informal Traders Alliance, which is the National Alliance of Informal Traders. My apology. I thought I'm switching off a video only to find that I'm switching off the mic. The Alliance is an association of alliance of associations of informal traders across South Africa. Let me start by saying the formation of South African Informal Traders Alliance is a great achievement in self-representation of informal trader within the formation of legislation that covers the informal sector. SAITA aligns itself with the motto, nothing about us without us, and has affiliates across the 9 provinces in South Africa and represents the informal sector across all trades. The main objective of the organization are: 1 is unionizing the informal sector to speak with one voice, protecting the right of informal traders, lobby for resources and capacity building, protecting informal traders against harassment, bargaining on behalf of the sector. SAITA is an affiliate of StreetNet International, which is a global international of the street vendors. The informal business sector in South Africa plays an important role in the socio-economic development of this country. The significance can be seen in terms of its contribution towards economic growth, employment creation, and poverty reduction, and in the development of semi-industrial base, among others. However, despite the critical role played by the sector, it is faced with many challenges and constraints that include an environment inhibitive legal and regulatory framework, limited access to finance, services, markets, skills, and technology, inadequate infrastructure, job quality, deficit in social security, unsatisfactory occupational health and safety standards, influx of foreign nationals, poor stakeholder management system, and lack of access to knowledge management and capacity building opportunities. The challenges that the sector have are including social protection, harassment by law enforcement, climate change, health and safety, decent working conditions, red tape, infrastructure and storage, access to funding, capacity building, implementation of R204, policy and bylaws. When we look into the access of funding, remember that the National Informal Business Upliftment Strategy was meant to assist the informal traders. And we are saying it needs to be reviewed. It shows a supporting program that helped so many informal traders through its need to be restructured and terms being relaxed. So we need to restructure this National Informal Business Upliftment Strategy so that most of the informal traders must have access. Remember, during the COVID-19, the number of informal traders has multiplied by 2 or 3 due to most of the people have lost their source of income, which were employed into different sectors, but because of the lost employment, now they've realized that the informal sector is only a way in, the easiest way for the survivalists, for their livelihood. The Township and Rural Entrepreneurial Program is dedicated program to transform and integrate opportunity in township and rural areas into productive business ventures. The focus is to create platforms that provide the business support, infrastructure, regulatory environment that enable entrepreneurs to thrive with programs. This program is accessible to informal traders. This also needs proper engagement with relevant stakeholders, including informal trader organizations. The problem that we have identified into this TREP program is that the informal traders organizations are not touched when the formulation of this. That is where most of the requirements, actually, we take it as a red tape to the informal trader, because most of the informal traders cannot access the TREP program due to the requirements that they have. Remember, informal traders are not informal as we are saying it's informal trader, because are regulated by the laws, and there are permits that are issued. It means they are formal, they are informal traders, but they are formal. And also Department of Small Business need to support the informal traders organization, especially the national organization, because the informal traders are there to assist the department with a lot of things that's happening on the ground. And also, when we look into the harassment by the enforcement, street traders are also exposed to crimes and abuse of regulations by officials. For example, bribery, harassment, extortion in the form of demands for protection payments, confiscation of informal traders' stock without proper channel to be followed, or a notice of following a PAJA. PAJA, we are talking about Promotion of Administration Justice Act, or a Business Act, and even the street trading bylaws. Most of the law enforcement, they are just doing what they want without following the proper channels, knowing that the informal traders, they do not have resources, they do not have money to challenge them to court, because to go to court, to have the lawyers, it's a challenge. And also in health and safety doesn't work conditions. Health and safety doesn't work conditions. According to the International Labour, ILO, doesn't work involve opportunities for work that are productive and deliver a fair income, security in the workplace, and social protection for families, better prospects for personal development and social integration, freedom for people to express their concerns, organize and participate in the decisions that affect their lives, and quality of opportunity and treatment for all women and men. Women traders are also exposed to crime, health risks, and other dangerous conditions as a result of poor access to resources. Street traders face diverse work environment risks and danger that put them at the high risk of illness due to exposure to the element that hazardous work environment. Health services are inaccessible, either because they do not seek help as they have a fear of losing any of their money, cannot afford the cost or they cannot afford the cost of health services providers. In social protection, the exclusion of informal traders from social protection contravenes international human rights and labor standards, and is also likely to undermine economic recovery. Due to the range of types of employment and income in the informal economy, to provide average for the growth for this group of workers, social protection programs should combine elements of both social assistance and social insurance. This requires consideration on how to make social insurance and other contributor programs more inclusive to informal traders. This comes from the element that during COVID-19 has exposed that the informal traders are not protected, and they are not part of this country, because most of the informal traders have lost their income because they can't come to work, but they didn't have the opportunity to claim UIF because they are not registered. Now it is very important that we reconsider. Remember, when any woman who she is pregnant, when they go to labor, they are losing their source of income for the period that they are at home. So social protection is very, very important. In the red tape, South Africa's strict regulatory environment gives informal traders sleepless nights and stress. Informal traders determined could be entrepreneurs preserved as best as they can through complex legislation and compliance requirements that used to prevent access to achieve their dreams. It's not so much the The rules themselves put the lack of official assistance, clarity, and coordination between government agencies and departments to assist informal traders. This frustration, bureaucratic process that serves to encourage informal traders in the country. The current legislation environment is not designed to support informal traders fairly and help them to grow. And all necessary obstructive regulations should be eliminated. And the informal trade organization must be participated on that to identify those red tape regulations. In the climate change, the impact of climate change has been forecasted to the hardest hit in the informal sector. The change of weather affects the daily income. In some instances, informal traders lose their stocks. Heat waves affect perishable goods, and during rain, also the informal traders' income for the informal traders are gone. The physical risk of climate change are the risk occurred when an informal trader infrastructure or raw material or other assets are destroyed or rendered useless due to a weather incident. This risk can include climate-related disasters such as floods, tsunami, and drought. Climate change can cause the price of commodities and raw material to rise. The result is low supply, greater damage, and high prices. On the product, as climate change progresses, it could affect buying patterns. For example, consumers may turn to new sources of energy as renewable products, but standard system and products out of favor. The implementation of R204. International Labour Organization recommendation number 204 of transition of informal business units to formalization of the informal economy. There is a need of integrated policy. To facilitate the transition to the formal economy. Must be included in national development strategy plans as well as poverty reduction strategy. Promote social dialogue which will include informal workers. The framework must also enable informal economy to enjoy freedom of association and the right to collective bargaining. There was a tax scheme to come up with a strategy to implement this. Now we are saying the tax scheme needs to be revived with framework and budget, because the problem is that there is a tax scheme, there is no budget for the tax scheme. But policy needs to be developed that will enable the transition of the informal to formalized, the formalization of the informal traders. When you go into the infrastructure and storage, water, sanitation, waste removal, shelter, and storage are important features to have for informal traders who often use public spaces for livelihood. It is important to maximize our public space infrastructure, if not to meet the needs of citizens experiencing public life, then to create more dignified working space for informal traders. The storage with better facilities like cooling systems is essential and needed. Inclusive of informal traders infrastructure into integrated development plan, IDP is a key to develop informal trader and creation of better livelihood within the municipal jurisdiction. There is a need of informal economy policy that will guide the municipality when they formulate free trading bylaws and guiding in implementation of that bylaw. Some of things that we need must be considered when they formulate the bylaws are municipal bylaw governing informal traders should ensure that the use of empowered as a measure to ensure compliance with bylaws is only permitted in exceptional circumstances and used sparingly. Municipal bylaw governing informal traders should ensure that the conduct of the local government officials or the municipality responsible for the implementation of the bylaws complies with the standards of administrative law. Municipal bylaw governing informal traders and local government officials should ensure that informal traders' rights to trade is protected. Any relocation of eviction or eviction of informal traders from their trading space must be comply with the legal provision governing informal traders, in particular Section 6A of the Business Act. Municipal bylaw governing informal trade should provide dispute resolution mechanism through which informal trader can appeal and challenge the decision of officials, the unlawful decision of officials of confiscating the assets of the informal trader. In conclusion, it's not by choice to be informal trader, it's by circumstances. Informal trading creates platform to enhance the livelihood. There are so many graduates in the street and also who graduated from informal trading. It is important that relationship with informal trader and Department of Small Business is maintained. I'm really disappointed by treatment of the department by refusing Saita to represent a large number of informal traders at Informal Economy Symposium and at SMME Awards and Summit. It's clear that the officials do not have mandate to work with the informal trader organization where the policies and programs delight for us without our input. Most of funding are not accessible for informal traders because we need to formalize the informal business before we receive any assistance. We request the department to assist, to consider organization while doing events. SAIDA is not subscription collecting organization due to lack of support to the members from the department, therefore cannot afford to attend events of government without or on its own account. The department needs to assist. I thank you.
Thank you so much. Really, we were at school today, Walini, but I'm happy that we are coming up with recommendations, issues of infrastructure, issues of policies, and also issues of red tapes, which is a thorny issue to us as members of parliament because really all those bureaucratic processes progress of our small. So really, thank you so much. I will now invite honorable members to engage with all the presentation. I believe, King, this was the last one.
No, Chair, there's the last one coming.
Oh, okay. All right. Can the presenter come on board? Thank you.
Ms. Muller.
Comrade Chairperson. Comrade Chair, my name is Paul Bester. You will see it highlighting now. I'm working with Comrade Rashida Miller, who's doing the presentation. Can you please open up able to host disable screen sharing? I need to share the screen with the presentation on behalf of President Rashida. Would you be able to just uplift this one so that I can be able to share the screen, please?
Yes. You can proceed.
Speak, Portfolio Committee. I see just Portfolio Committee. I think you said, Comrade King. It says still host disabled screen sharing.
It should go to Paul Bester, ne?
Yes, Comrade. Thank you.
There it is.
Let me just quickly see. Thank you.
Sorry about the delay. Good morning. Good morning, all honorable members.
I think so, no?
Technology.
One second.
Yes, thank you, Comrade Paul, for assisting me in doing my presentation. In the meantime, I'll just introduce myself.
Yes, proceed with that so long, Comrade, then I'll set up the rest for you.
All right.
Chairperson, I'm sorry, I'm very sorry. Can I come in here, please? Chairperson?
I can hear you. Proceed, please.
Yes, can I come in, please?
Yes, come in.
Chairperson?
Your chance.
Yeah, I'm very sorry, but I don't think it's proper for Rashida, and I see she say she's also from SAITA.
No, I didn't say that, comrade. Point of correction. Point of correction, comrade. I am from the IEDF.
All right, but any case, so Miss Miller is at the moment on a suspension from SAITA, according to a media statement that I saw in August. And it say the former president of the organization, SAITA, Rashida Miller, has resigned as president on the 2nd of August, and but she's under suspension as well for implicated in as implicated in allegations. I don't know what is the allegations. Maybe she can, but apparently something went wrong. So I don't know if it's still proper to listen to Ms. Miller. I can't.
Chairperson, may I come in there, please?
Yes, come in.
Good day, Chairperson. My name is Paul Bester. I'm the Secretary General of the IEDF. President Rashida Miller was the president of SAITA, and she resigned, stepped down, and was appointed as the president of the IEDF prior to the allegations lodged against her some 3 months ago. We were told that the investigation was going to be held against her. That outcome was to be made available on the 17th of November. We are at the end of November and there's no outcome. So not to labor the point to the Honorable Member Kruger as well, but President Rashida is a president of the IEDF and she has not been charged of anything, and she's not been suspected by the IEDF as well. She's still in our office. So if the Honourable Member Kruger can just understand that the allegations made by Saita is none of our business, if I may call it like that. They do their own thing. Investigation was 3 months. The part time, as they asked us to look at her, passed on the 17th of November. So as far as we are concerned, Chairperson, she is representing the IEDF. And as the IEDF, we support her and we would like her to do a presentation. If at the end of the day, there's an issue regarding the presentation, maybe the members can debate the point afterwards. But for now, I request the person to allow her to proceed with the presentation. Thank you, Chairperson.
Madam Chair, I'm covered. Okay. I just want to say,
Honorable Kruger, if
covered.
you are covered, can she proceed? Proceed, ma'am, please.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. I am waiting for my slides to come up, and Comrade Paul is just helping me as I don't have the capability of doing the sharing of my presentation. But I can start with my presentation while it is not on the screen. But I'd like to start with who Rashida Muller is. Rashida Muller is now 69 years old, and she has been an informal trader since 1987 and an activist in South Africa and in particularly in the Western Cape since that time. So I'm presenting to you today the organization that I present here is the Informal Economy Development Forum. Yes, indeed, I was the president of SAITA for 9 years, and what great work SAITA has done. But what I realized was that SAITA only represents the informal traders and the informal economy, honorable members of parliament, is much more diverse than the informal traders and street traders alone. So our company, we bridge, next slide. Comrade Paul, next slide. Oh, technology. I'm sorry for this. Yes, the IEDF, we bridge the gap between South Africa's informal and formal economy with the objective of transforming the informal economy into the mainstream economy of South Africa. The IEDF plays a leading role at being the catalyst for innovation and transformation. We place focus on creating opportunities for informal business with training and development in leadership roles and create market access for informal and corporate businesses alike. We drive transformation with advanced business sustainability and resilience, with a focus on building entrepreneurs by assisting the small and informal businesses to set up and provide training and education in their areas. We support and work closely with NGOs and NPOs to assist in the building of sustainable communities within our country. Our vision, next slide. Our vision is to be the unifying body for the informal economy through active advocacy, playing a leading role at being the catalyst for innovation and transformation, whilst ensuring that there's equal opportunity and dignity is protected. Our purpose, creating entrepreneurs and getting the informal economy funding ready. And I'd like to speak about that at a later stage in my presentation. Enter the IEDF, having witnessed firsthand the inequalities associated with informal business sector and gauging the attitude of authorities towards it, the IEDF recognized the need to remedy and improve the situation, indeed for the greater good of the country. It therefore embarked upon a revolutionary campaign to consolidate all the subsectors of this vibrant informal economy. It has successfully accomplished this with the collaboration of its various leaders who embrace a shared vision of growth and development. The IDF has managed to do what might earlier have been thought to be improbable. They have established a President's Council incorporating the presidents or chairpersons of all the informal business subsectors. The IDF can now legitimately act and argue on behalf of the entire sector, which indeed it now does. The professionalism in so many fields that the IDF brings to the table is testament to its qualifications as a reliable broker partner facilitator. The rollout of upliftment programs continues unabatedly, and the Build Back Better campaign is its latest offering of truly revolutionary campaign design for the benefit of informal businesses nationally. We therefore view our role as a critical interlocutor, able and capable to make a real difference in the lives and livelihood of persons employed in the informal economy. Our President's Council, as is shown here, myself as the National President of TUMSA, Vicky Sampson, the Treasurer and General of the SAWIMA, the South African Women in Mining, Fezeka Mabuza. We also have the National President of SADC in the mining is Melody Kweba. We have the Secretary General who was with me today on the platform, Comrade Paul Bester. We have the Provincial Chairperson of the South African Youth Council, Benjamin Sansi. We also have a very uncommon sector, which is national, basically in 6 of the provinces, the South African Cart and Horse Association, Alistair Jack. At that time, we did not have the pictures of other national movements that have joined us. I will come to that later. The next slide. What are our services of the IEDF? Services of business development support services for the Informal Trader Associations and its members. Coaching, mentoring in business growth, sustainability and profitability. Assisting businesses and NPO registration and compliance. Structure and governance training for all informal trader associations. Assistance with implementation of financial management systems for informal trade associations. Finance education, training for informal traders and its members. Opening of business bank accounts, assistance, training and development, assistance with funding and lending of products, and also supply development. Next one. We also have an IEDF college. The IEDF college offers a wide range of skills programs that is geared to fit the needs of the informal and formal economies alike. Through a carefully curated basket of e-learning programs, we are convinced that we can assist in making a meaningful contribution in the growth of our economy. The objectives of the IEDF College: our students can take classes virtually, allowing them to learn anywhere. Students can join around busy schedules to complete their courses. The IEDF mentors and coaches will support students that need greater self-motivation, time management, skills, and discipline to complete their courses. Our webinar, online videos linked to current courses are similar to face-to-face interaction with a facilitator. Our IEDF app is linked to the college to allow networking with classmates. Learning courses that we offer: emotional intelligence, entrepreneurship readiness program, goal setting, personal growth, role of a team leader, negotiation skills, diversity in training. Our activations. All activations take place throughout South Africa in 9 provinces to change the economy as a whole. Activations is the execution of the informal economy as part of the process. The activation phase typically comes after the planning phase, during which we plan our events, and is followed by feedback phase, where we monitor the growth of the economy to bridge the gap between informal and formal businesses. Our partners, too many to read, but just to reiterate that we do have a national MOU with CEDA, CEFA, SARS. We also have partnership agreements with Absa Bank, South Sea, FNB, and many others, as you can see there. Thank you. Next one. There is our details, and I'm sure that our chairperson, our presentation will be shared with each and every one. There is another part to the presentation that I'll just continue as my time slot is not up. Yes, this is just to introduce again the fact that I have been the president of CITA, and before CITA was came into being, I was on the steering committee for many, many years, and we are aligned with the same views when it comes to the informal trading sector. So, as I said, the IEDF spans across many more sectors. And within my 30 years of activism, I believe that that was the right way to move into the IEDF. Next slide. Who are our sectors? We have a new kid on the block, yes. We have NITASA, which is the National Informal Traders Alliance of South Africa, which is also just focusing on informal trade. As I said, we have the South African Youth Council, we have SATSAU, the international group of domestic workers, but representing the South African team. They are also under our banner. We have TUMSA, we have ARO. ARO is the African Recyclers Organization. We have NECDA, the National Early Childhood Development, and their comrades, honorable members. There are serious issues that needs to be resolved in the early childhood learning sector. We also have Notukela Foundation, where we focus on assisting entrepreneurs with disabilities. I've mentioned our horse and cart. We have tourism within the informal economy, very big, and they also have aligned themselves under the banner of the IEDF. We have the home-based workers of South Africa. We have backyard businesses, welders, electricians, builders, anybody who trades is welcome within the IEDF for its support services. Next slide. About 4. Why the IEDF? As I've said earlier, the IEDF was formed as the conduit between government and corporates on the one hand, and the informal economy in the holistic perspective on the other hand. Founding members from all walks of life, including social engineers, labor, human resource, informal economy, financial administrations, are at the helm of the IEDF. The passion for the vulnerable workers, the common thread that runs through this organization. We are to ensure the interests and protection of all informal economy workers nationally. Our aims are to stimulate growth, to help make them compliant and getting them funding ready, which is a topic, very big one on its own. Now in South Africa, we all know that we have 3 tiers of government: the local, the provincial, and the national. And we urge as the IEDF that there be closer cooperation, because many of our informal traders, as our previous speaker has indicated, we have the problems with the local municipalities who does not recognize very many informal traders who work on their land, and that we are constantly harassed, and we have been promoting the Do No Harm campaign of StreetNet, where we are saying no evictions, no harassments, and no confiscations. But it still continues, and we appeal that there be closer cooperation, and I do believe that the district model has been implemented, as Minister Stella of the Department of Small Business Development has indicated at the summit, which I attended recently, and we are glad for that, but we need to see implementation. Thank you. Next one. Recommendation R204, which my previous colleague has also spoken about in depth. We just need to reiterate that recommendation to R204 has been adopted in Geneva by the ILO in 2015. We are 7 years down the line, and yet we find ourselves as leadership of the informal economy teaching municipalities or municipal officials about R204. R204 is about the formalization of the informal economy, but it does mean that there be an enabling environment, social protection, access to funding, and I'm glad to have noted that one of our comrades in the cooperative presentations has indicated that in the informal economy, we need to ensure that many of them move to cooperatives for better access. I would like to engage with that comrade further, as I am also in Cape Town and would like to attend that event tomorrow. Next slide. Government programs, and I know Comrade Michael has spoken about it again, but these are the common threads that run through the informal economy, from the informal trader to the spaza shop owner to the home-based worker, that access to funding is too bureaucratic. Within the IEDF, we have a special department where we have placed a qualified accountant to deal with the TREP applications. However, she has informed all of us in the IEDF leadership that once the little business, the informal business, has done everything in its, to his compliance, there are still red tape issues. The government is expecting an NCR certificate that costs 3,500. Now, when you are in informal business and you're trying to start up and grow and access what government puts out there, and you come across something that's going to cost you 3,500, you again feel despondent. So today, honorable members of this portfolio committee of the Department of Small Business, we urge you to collectively engage us to be able to unpack the red tape that sits within our access to finance in programs that government has put on the table. I don't know if that's, then the final slide, I think, is this one. Yes, at the SMME and Cooperative Summit that took place recently, Minister implored all associations, institutions to work in collaboration and partnership with national government. It is clear government cannot work in silos. Government need to engage those organizations that's out there. And I am so happy that the IEDF was present and also endorsed the signing of the media statement on that day. I wish to thank you, and I hope we'll engage further. Thank you, Honorable Chair, honorable members of the portfolio, and all speakers.
Thank you so much for the powerful presentation. I believe members have noted down issues of clarity-seeking questions, other inputs. It's your time, honorable members, now to engage with all the reports. But King will assist me in identifying hands of honorable members. Thank you.
Chair, there's a hand from Honorable Kruger. Chair, it's Honorable Kruger so far.
Okay. Honorable Kruger, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for all the presentations. It was really, really, really informative. And I personally wish that we had these presentations in 2019, because, you know, our term is running out and the time is few to assist this informal sector of us and cooperatives, of course. And you will remember I'm very vocal about the Tannie selling apples on the corner of the street, the informal sector and cooperatives. So I just want to thank you. And it seems like there's a lot of work for us ahead. And we need to look at our program again so that we accommodate these presentations and organization representing cooperatives and informal trades. You know, I got always saying the freedom of trade is close to my heart. Madam Chair, and I'm very surprised as well that we don't get invited to all the seminars and indabas and you know, meetings alike, so that we understand the frustrations of these organizations. Because if we don't understand the frustration of these organizations, we as a committee as a whole can't address their problem. So please, King, if we can put our ear on the ground and get invited to the seminars and overseas, it seems like in the cooperative world there's a lot of happening, and also in the informal sector, informal business, there's also a lot happening. So please make sure that you invite us, and I want to ask Ms. Miller as well. Please invite us. King, you can give my email address, cell phone number as well. So I would like to have a meeting with her so that we can discuss her problems and see if there's not a solution. Thank you, Madam Chair.
There's a hand from Honorable Jacobs.
Honorable Jacobs, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Chair, and greetings to all the honorable members and everybody on the platform. I also want to just record our appreciation for all the presentations. I think we all know that the cooperative sector and the informal traders sector is a very important sector. It is where we need to ensure that we put more emphasis as this portfolio committee. So, Chair, just some preliminary remarks. I think we were alerted that there was in the 5th administration also a meeting with all the cooperatives in 2018. And there's a lot of issues that came out of that meeting. That's probably the same challenges that I've heard also. Issues of fragmentation, issues of organization, issues of many different cooperatives that's working not in alignment, the question of accountability, the question of how do we ensure that the challenges of cooperatives be confronted. We have a legislative framework, but that doesn't mean the implementation and the support and the ecosystem is there. Chair, we as the governing party, the ANC, we believe in a mixed economy. And when we talk about the mixed economy, we believe that we must allow the private sector, the market to create an enabling environment. But we also believe that the state must help cooperatives, especially. So cooperatives worked really well during apartheid. And the Afrikaners, the reason why they got so looked after themselves is because there was a small group of people, but they used cooperatives, cooperative, in all of these where they socialize people together and work for common good. And I think we are challenged. The reason why cooperatives is not doing what they should do is a number of reasons. And I think some of the speakers spoke about it. It is government support, but I think there's also a culture and a paradigm that needs to be changed. You see, you can't be greedy, you can't be selfish, you can't focus on yourself if you want to work in a cooperative. It's not a quick fix, get rich scheme. It is where you socialize the social capital of the people, a group, a collective, where you work for a common cause or purpose. So I think, I mean, if you look at the last period, especially in the 5th administration, a lot of money has been spent, but there's also been a lot of corruption in the cooperative sector. And, you know, some people will throw the baby out with the bathwater and say, yeah, I see there are cooperatives that fail, so therefore we don't think we need cooperatives in South Africa because these people, and they say these people, these blacks, because that's the language that they use, they can't organize themselves. We still believe on the principle of cooperatives. We still believe that cooperatives can be a complementary process, and if done successful, can help our people to create jobs. At the same time, also use socializing capital, the social enterprise, to ensure that we build. So We are grateful to meet all of the presentators here. We will engage with them. It was a pity that Parliament couldn't approve us attending the cooperative. I think there was a workshop last week or so. On short notice, we couldn't attend. And we are keen to share the platforms. I agree with Honorable Kruger that as members, we are activists. We want to be part of the sector. So we don't want to just do oversight. We want to ensure that we unlock the challenges. So the cooperative sector and the informal trader has friends, as comrades in this portfolio committee. I think we want to make it very clear. We're not starting from scratch. We're learning from the mistakes that we've made. We're wanting to ask that all the different bodies, we need to ensure how we create the renewal and unity that's so important, that we have a common purpose, that we ensure that there's checks and balances, that we ensure that the mistakes that we've made of the past is not repeated. I also think that we're calling on also to work with all the informal traders, in the informal sector, all the organizations. Our job is not to choose one or the other or say this or that. So whether it's AITA, whether it's IDF, whether it's other informal trade association, ours is to ensure that we create opportunities, and government, especially the department, must prioritize informal sector. We put on quite significant targets that the township and rural economy program will be the flagship program. We're also saying that the access to micro funding and micro sector will also be a critical focus. So, Chair, I think there's a lot to digest in all of these presentations. I think we as the committee will have to also regroup and see what are the priorities, what are the focuses, and hopefully in the new year, in the new quarter, we will then say these are the steps. We also want to hear what came out of the Indaba that was held by the cooperatives. What are the recommendations coming through? Because we do have the legislative framework. So let me pause there, Chair, and just say thank you for all that has participated. This portfolio is very deliberate. We know why we're calling the cooperative bodies. We know why we're calling the informal traders, because we want to journey with you. We are your partners, and we want to have a people's contract with this sector, because you, with all of your challenges, with all of the weakest, you represent the most vulnerable in the economy, the most marginalized. And our policy is to increase economic participation, especially amongst poor blacks, especially amongst our vulnerable communities. And so the mainstream, the formal economy must make space. We must have a coexistence between the big multinational companies and cooperatives. And we need to find like value chain, supply chain in the agriculture, in all of those things. Those are critical issues. And so there's some new innovative ideas coming through the department, and we're also calling on everybody to be ready for this new change. So, Chair, I don't have specific questions. Maybe one question. I think some of the organization are membership based. Some of them are service provider organizations, and I think that's important, so that we have a level of accountability and transparency. Because you see, a lot of money has gone into the sectors also, but we must have these people, the informal traders, the cooperatives must benefit themselves directly from government resources. And there must be a level of accountability, because we heard horror stories of people just filling forms. 7 people signed up, get cooperatives, gets lots of money from government, and then they're missing. The 7 of them are missing, and the money of government is gone. We can't allow that to continue, because it's corruption, it's fraud, and those type of things give the sector a bad name. So we're hoping that we will deal with these issues. We will confront the challenges, and we look forward to a productive and a developmental relationship with all the players in the sector. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Jacobs. Braking?
Yes, Chairperson.
Do we have any other hand?
No, Chairperson.
Okay, thank you. After all, this was lecturing. I'm happy because the presenters were also coming up with some recommendation. There is a dead need from our side that we need to support them. Can I have one to respond?
Chair, there's a hand from Ms. Muller.
Bracken?
Thank you. Thank you,
Present.
Honorable Chair. May I go ahead?
Yes, may proceed, Ms. Muller.
Thank you very much. I think what is very, very important for us is to not have ad hoc meetings like this. I am grateful for the fact that we could present here today, but if we could have sort of, set time frames of engagement and setting ourselves tasks so that we can monitor and evaluate how far we went, for example, every quarter. If we set our task on certain matters, for example, the IEDF has about, I think, close to 200 applications for the TRIP funding, and we are struggling with it. So we need direction on, how do we overcome these loops? We have presented a letter to the minister and we hope we will receive an answer quickly. But I think we must more formalize our relationship of the informal economy workers and the cooperatives, because many of us, even myself, I'm a cooperative. So we need to sort of regularize our time frame of meeting with the portfolio so we can give you updates on our concerns and challenges. Maybe once a quarter is just a proposal from me. Thank you.
Thanks. Is there any other taker from the presenter to say something before you leave?
There's a hand, Chair, from Mr. Zakaria Matsila from NASA.
Over to you, sir.
And Mr. Padu.
Okay, let's start with the rep from NASA.
Thank you, Honorable Chair and the Honorable Committee, again for the opportunity. And I felt that probably it's very important that...
Can we see you, Mr. Matsila?
Oh, okay. Presenter was there. I feel very important as the portfolio committee, if at the table, it's important that we give the reason why specific topic. International celebration event, Kawa Day movement, cooperative world international day mentioned by for.
Sorry to interject you, Mr. Matsila. Maybe you can switch off then your video, sorry, because it seems as if it cows your bandit, your network, right. So we don't hear you properly.
Or am I up there now?
Yeah, you can switch off your video then, because we are struggling to hear you. Chair, can you go to Mr. Padu Tebogo while Mr. Matsila is trying to reconnect?
Yes.
Okay, no, thanks, Chair. I think I can put off my video. You have seen me before. But just to say that we, I also want to echo the, to be thankful for the committee to give us this opportunity. And just to emphasize that the proposals we have submitted in our presentation, some of them we believe that they are too urgent for the attention of the work of the committee, especially this matter of a merger with other entities, because it will require amendments to the Cooperatives Banks Act and possibly, as I've said, also the Cooperatives Act. And it is very, very important that we take into account that in the manner in which we can respond. I also want to emphasize one point that is always sometimes misunderstood. And many cooperatives, especially here in the cooperative banking sector, are literally collective self-help organization. 90% of what we do over the last 14 years was without any direct government funding. It is people who mobilize their own savings. Out of those savings, they develop loan products to support their operations, their democratic governance, and so on. So there is little to show in terms of support that was stated even in the Cooperatives Banks Act, except in areas like training and education, which we have acknowledged in our presentation. So a lot of that aggressive support is what we need. If we want to grow this sector, to ensure that millions and millions of our people own the banks, the workers, the communities, we can only do that with an aggressive government support. That's what Uganda is showing us, Poland, Kenya, including even United States, unbelievable in this world, which came out strongly in support of the cooperative banking sector. So we just hope that we will have such champions in our government, not just one champion, but champions, especially the Ministry of Small Business Development, to take us to the right lines. I think even if it's not 2019, it's 2022, we still think that the next 18 months or so there's still an opportunity for us to turn the situation around. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. The previous speaker who failed to talk, did he connect, Rakim?
Yes, Chairperson.
Hello, Rakim.
Yes, Chairperson. Yes. Mr. Matsila.
Who connected the phone? Yes, Mr. Matsila, can you come in, Mr. Matsila?
Thanks, Chairperson. My apology, the network just took me out for a while. But I just wanted to raise about three things that are pertinent. The first one, Chair, if you remember, we were before the portfolio committee, and then looking at other avenues of support, or even looking at the possible home for cooperatives, seeing that the frustration that we also are raising again and again and again today with the portfolio committee for small business about the willingness and the readiness of the Department of Small Business to support cooperatives and the frustration thereof. And there was then a recommendation to seek an audience with the presidency to see if probably the cooperative can be launched there, specifically looking at the fact that cooperatives is not only within the small business development, but actually cooperative exists in all different departments as they are multi-sectoral type of organizations. So I just wanted to report that the process is still ongoing, it's still not exhaustive, even though it's a little bit tedious. But yes, we are trying a level best to see how far would we seek the intervention of the presidency in this case, so that we expedite the role that cooperatives can play and the support thereof for cooperatives. Then secondly is the event tomorrow, which is at the retreat, the New Nations Church in retreat. For those who probably were asking to say, where is this particular event? It's a 2-day event. It will start tomorrow and end up tomorrow lunchtime and end up on Friday. And then the portfolio chairperson and the honorable committee, an invite has been dispensed so that we get honored by your presence in the particular event within your busy schedules. And then lastly, it's the issue that is very important, which is the national, we can even coin it as International Cooperative Summit, which I think it was a decision that was taken by the portfolio committee before COVID, that looking at the issues that we were raising as in CASA, then there was a really need and a pressing need to have a summit where decisions be taken, because in that particular summit, then it gives us an opportunity to invite all different departments where cooperatives are actually very, very pertinent in terms of the programs, from your human settlement to the Department of Labor and Agriculture, Rural Development, the Treasury. So all those particular departments, and specifically in COGTA, because a lot of work that is taking place in LED, where it's not actually happening, issues of that will have to be raised at the summit. So we just want to make you aware that we are looking at sometimes between March and April next year for that particular national summit. It will be a 3-day summit. What's left is for us to engage the ministries and look at fundraising mechanisms again around that. But in the long and short of it is that we, chairperson, will have to register our gratitude, because the portfolio committee has been very supportive of our initiative as cooperative. The only thing that is very important that we like us to see happening is the willingness from the ministry and specifically the agencies of the Department of Small Business Development. As we indicated that if an agency can record a zero funding when it has a budget for cooperatives for the whole year, that is a red flag that needs to be addressed as a matter of agency. I would like to pause there, Chair, and thank you on behalf of CASA as the President.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Matsila. Braking, do you still have any hands?
I think the last one, Mr. Pali.
Okay, Mr. Mbali, over to you.
Pali.
Pardon?
Oh, ish.
So it's Pali will be followed by Mr. Tebo. I think they'll be those are the last one.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
No, yeah, break. Come again. Hello. Ubalekile, Mr. Mbali. Can they come in the meantime?
No, sorry, that's a legacy hand, sorry.
Okay.
There's Mr. Pali, Chair. Unmute your, okay. Unmute your mic, Pali.
It's like law.
Unmute your mic. Yeah.
Okay, what did it say? Hey.
That's it. Huh? You can speak.
Okay, thanks very much. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, thanks very much. No, I wanted to comment on the last issue and then agree with the colleagues that maybe from this Parliament Committee, we have got an urgent issue to deal with, but I thought we will be speaking in one voice that we agreed on the issue of the Apex, that this matter should be resolved as a matter of urgency than to give the departments an opportunity not to support cooperatives and say that they are this and this so that we are one from now onwards. It's a matter of urgency. Chairperson of Portfolio Committee, I think you have got the powers in terms of legislation to call in the head of department, the DG and the DDGs, to come to a meeting and we sit and then get a solution so that we speak in one place so that we all agree to say that these things that implementation of the act, and then by when should this be done, so that there must be consequences, Chairperson, when people are not doing their job. We can't just be sitting and talk and nothing happens. So we sit in one place, all of us, same way they Zoom like this, and they commit. When the date arrives, we said, how far have you done on what we've agreed? On the issue of the Friday, tomorrow and Friday, it's not nice. It's not like it's in CASA even. It's a APEC. It's all of us. We have discussed, we have agreed that we are going there. We acknowledge it was initiated by CASA, which we appreciate and which we are in support. We are going there as one. So that it comes other event. It should not be like in NAXA, in CASA, Sanako, banking, others and so on. We need to start now working as one. We are ready even to get other members of from other entities to be sent to do work on behalf of Sanako, but we will no longer say Sanako. It will when they call, they know that they should call like that, but they should be doing this on behalf of South African cooperatives so that we are one from now onwards. There's a lot of work needs to be doing. The housing co-op in Egypt, the issue of agriculture in the ICAO, so that we cannot do these things alone as Sanako. We can do all of us, but going forward as agreed, when you go to these meetings, we'll also wish to go with some members of parliament and departments. So I think I wanted to emphasize that while we get one another, we're working along with one another, we are happy. And thanks very much, Mr. Mazela. Thanks very much, Tate Padu, Bopis, and others that were one from now onwards. And we love your support, Chairperson. We really wish if you could support us, not by any material thing, to be part of us, work with us. Even if you are not there yourself, delegate someone. Thank you very much. We have got hope and confidence in your hands. Thank you very much.
Chairperson,
Thank you.
Chairperson,
Yes.
I'm challenged here with in my gadget, technological. I don't see a hand. I wanted to raise a hand long time ago.
Okay, you can speak.
Yeah, but I wanted to say this to Cooperative Parliament that in our presentation we might not have mentioned the issue of unity, but we do believe that unity for us is sacrosanct. We need to do unity as soon as yesterday. So we support what he's saying and we support the deliberations around unity issues, even though we have explained that when we talk about unity, one of the things that must not be done, we don't have to have hidden agendas, we don't have to have non-negotiables, and so on and so forth. Otherwise, we support what he's saying wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the response. I believe and hope that this portfolio committee won't fail you. We heard you were just disappointed if the department could not implement the decision of the House or the decision of the portfolio committee, but it's something which will make some follow-ups. We are really behind you, and the issue of unity is also encouraging us because Where people are in one roof, things happen to be easier. But if people are scattered, we usually do not reach our goal. So these were powerful presentation. We'll digest on them. You heard one of our own said we should have met with you during 2019, but I can say that it is not late. We still have got time, and what we need to do is to go and look properly on this presentation, more especially on the issues of pieces of legislation, which are the stumbling blocks to our people. I'm so impressed about the cooperative bank, and also the issue of aligning yourselves internationally. To me, it really shows that we are alive, because benchmarking is the best method in the world. We will encourage other departments. We are just the mother of small businesses, but we don't have funds. But with the little we are having, we are trying our best. So thank you so much. It was a very good session to us, and keep well. Go and look after yourself. We are going for December season, which is a very difficult one. Let's pray that God protect all of us, and then we meet again. The issue of meeting with you regularly, I think we have noted that, because if there is a gap, you happen not to close that gap if you come at a later stage. Then on the issue of the invitation, we are being governed by the rules of the House. You don't just invite the portfolio committee and then the chairperson the next day stand up and go there. No, there are rules, and I don't think that unless a person has got no other activities and it is a walkabout distance, because we are being guided the rules of the National Assembly, where you need to get a permission from chair of chairs. So I was just highlighting that our absence sometimes it is because of what I have alluded. But thank you so much. You may now be released. Braking, let's go back to our agenda.
Chairperson, it's the consideration of we've got 2 sets of minutes that we'd like the committee to consider. Can you hear me, Chair, members?
I can hear you, King.
Okay, these are the minutes of the committee. These are the minutes of the portfolio committee that was held on the 16th of November, where the committee was receiving a briefing from the Office of the Presidency on the red tape reduction. And these were the members of the committee that were in attendance. Then from the department, we had Mr. Nkosi, Dr. Costa, Mr. Corey, Ms. Shumane and Litabo Mutlala.
Nice.
Opening by the chairperson. Apologies was Honorable Zungula and Mr. Honorable Tenjane.
Madam Chair, I think we just go through them page by page. That was a decision that we take long ago.
It is page 3. Page 4. Deo Archer.
I move for the adoption, Chair.
Thank you. Any seconder, honorable members?
I do second.
Thank you, Honorable Vengo. Can we go back to our agenda, King?
Yes, we've got the last set of minutes, chairperson.
Scroll them for us. And then move page by page so that we are able to do corrections. Any correction? Move to the next page. Any correction, honorable members? Move. Any correction? Any corrections? Any corrections? Thank you, honorable members. Can I have a mover for the adoption of the minutes? Is a true reflection of what transpired last week.
I move, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Jacobs. Any seconder for the adoption?
I second.
Thank you, Chief. Honorable Chief. The minutes are duly adopted. Can we move to the next item? Thank you, honorable members. for your participation. I really appreciate it. And also to wish all of us good luck during this festive season. May God go and protect all of us and we'll meet again. You have been a very wonderful team. I respect your efforts and also respect your commitment into this portfolio committee. Together we can do more. Let's soldier on. But before I said the meeting comes to an end, I would like Brother Sbu to respond on what Honorable Kruger has indicated, because it was a matter which we spoke about that. We submit a letter for that in our bill. So Sbu, can you assure us?
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, honorable members. Am I audible, Braking?
Yes, you are.
No, that's fine. Chair, it's fine. I followed what Honorable Kruger has said. I will indeed be drafting a correspondence for the attention of Charmaine via your office chairperson. What I've been doing, Chair, like for the past week or so, was to sort of put a draft writing on the policy, because in terms of the parliamentary processes, there is a requirement that the portfolio committee, if it wants to propose a committee bill, must come up with a research report or a policy. That would be equivalent to a white paper when it comes to government processes, which basically gives the background on why we want this particular bill considered and adopted by a parliament. So I've been busy doing that, Chairperson, but it seems from what Honorable Kruger has indicated to me that maybe there would be a way of circumventing that long process and instead go straight to the consideration, because we have something, a base document that the portfolio committee can work on. So I will follow the counsel or advice from Honorable Kruger by assisting your chairperson to draft that letter for the attention of Charmaine. Then upon the receipt of that correspondence, chairperson, apparently Charmaine will then delegate someone to work with us in terms of putting together documentation. So ideally, we should be in a position to have a complete document by the time we come back around February 2023. In fact, I can even commit to that chairperson that if there's still a need for us to come up with that research report or policy, it would be ready by then. So that's my commitment, chairperson. But in the meantime, I will be writing a draft letter or email for your dispatch, chairperson, for the attention of Charmaine. Let me pause there, chairperson. I will also make sure that I touch base with my colleagues, chair, from the department, because one risk that a portfolio committee is faced with is to have two parallel processes where the department will be working on the same thing while the committee is working on the same. So I think we should also take that into account. I thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Sbu. I don't think that we can reverse our decision as the portfolio committee. You may do that to have touch base with the colleagues that side, but this is the decision of the portfolio committee. I will appreciate if you write that letter, you draft that letter, and then those other issues will follow later. I think I'm audible enough to guarantee that the portfolio committee that we don't ignore the decision of the portfolio committee. Honorable Kruger, are you fine now?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Merry Christmas and very festive season for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Who wants to wish for us, Chief? Honorable Chief. Honorable Chief, ubalekile imkhahleleni.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I would like to congratulate for the job you have done for a long time. Since I came to this committee, I would like to say to you, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to everybody till we meet next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Who's also in the platform? Honorable Zungula, are you still here? Honorable Zungula. Braki, is Honorable Zungula still in? Honorable Jacob?
He is no longer here. We can take Honorable de Villiers, still here.
Honorable de Villiers. Unfair message.
Chair and members of the committee, honorable members, thank you very much for the past year's work. I wish everybody a blessed Christmas time with their families. Please be safe and I'll see you all next year.
Thank you, Honorable de Villiers. Honorable Jacobs.
Well, when in Onke, I greet all of you, and also on behalf of the ANC in this portfolio, we thank all the members for your cooperation, and we really did well this year. It's going to be a busy season. This is going to be the first season that we're out of COVID, so we encourage people to be safe, be festive, be responsible. We want to thank you, Chair, for your leadership, your excellent, mature leadership of steering the ship. We want to thank the officials, both from the study group and from the portfolio committee, for their tireless work, and all our fellow members and all the people that have participated in this platform. We are very committed to make small business everybody's business, and we want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a good festive and safe festive season. May you all be blessed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Jacobs. Thanks to everyone indeed. Merry Christmas to everyone until we meet next year. Thanks also to you members for your cooperation as well as our officials. I believe we'll come back being fresh so that we make sure that the vehicle is moving faster than we are expected. Thank you so much. The meeting stands adjourned.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
Recording stopped.
Mubad.